Picture this. 40,000 years ago, deep inside a cave lit only by firelight, a Neanderthal elder runs his fingers over a scalp that is noticeably thinner than it used to be. And somewhere across the ocean of time in 21st century America, a guy is standing in front of his bathroom mirror doing the exact same thing, worried about the exact same problem. Because here's the twist nobody talks about. Baldness isn't a modern curse invented by stress, bad shampoo, or too much scrolling on your phone. It is one of the oldest, most stubbornly persistent traits in the entire human story. And scientists have actually traced its roots back further than most people would ever guess. For decades, the popular assumption was that pattern baldness was a modern issue, something tied to industrial living, poor diets, or even wearing hats too much. But genetic research has completely dismantled that myth. In 2005, researchers identified a specific variant on the X chromosome, inherited from the mother's side, that is strongly linked to androgenetic alopecia, the scientific name for classic male pattern baldness. And this gene has been present in the human genome for an extraordinarily long time, likely predating recorded civilization by tens of thousands of years. Meaning, the code for baldness was already written into our DNA before humans ever built the first city, farmed the first field, or tamed the first animal. Ancient DNA studies on skeletal remains, combined with comparative genetics between modern humans and our extinct cousins the Neanderthals, suggest that hair-thinning genes may have existed even before Homo sapiens fully split off as a distinct species. Which means somewhere in a Paleolithic hunting party, there was very likely a bald guy trying to keep up with the group, spear in hand, scalp shining under the sun, completely unaware that he was part of a genetic lineage that would still be causing insecurity in gym locker rooms hundreds of thousands of years later. So why would evolution allow this trait to survive instead of eliminating it? This is where things get genuinely fascinating. Baldness is driven primarily by dihydrotestosterone, commonly known as DHT, a hormone byproduct of testosterone that shrinks hair follicles over time in genetically sensitive men. And since testosterone is deeply tied to dominance, aggression, and reproductive drive throughout early human history, some researchers believe baldness may not have been a flaw at all. Rather, an unintended side effect of having a hormonal profile that made ancient men more competitive, more assertive, and in some social structures, more likely to rise in rank or attract mates. Despite the hair loss, not because of it. There's even a theory floating around anthropology circles that baldness may have functioned as a subtle visual signal of age and experience within early tribal hierarchies. Because in small hunter-gatherer groups, elders were valued for survival knowledge, memory of droughts, migration patterns, dangerous predators, and edible plants. So a receding hairline might have unintentionally marked a man as someone who had lived long enough to accumulate wisdom. Essentially, an ancient biological badge of seniority, long before gray hair or wrinkles became the more obvious signs of aging. Then there's the archaeological side of the story, which adds an almost comedic layer of relatability to all of this. Because ancient civilizations were just as obsessed with fighting baldness as men are today. Egyptian papyrus scrolls dating back over 3,000 years, including the famous Ebers papyrus, contain detailed home remedies for hair regrowth. One of the more infamous recipes? A mixture of animal fats from a hippopotamus, crocodile, snake, and hyena rubbed directly onto the scalp in hopes of restoring lost hair. And while it obviously did not work, it proves that hair loss was already a widespread anxiety even in the age of pyramids and pharaohs. The Greeks weren't far behind either. And this is where one of history's most surprisingly practical medical minds enters the picture. Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, was himself bald. He personally experimented with treatments involving pigeon droppings, horseradish, cumin, and nettles applied to the scalp, a treatment so notorious that it later became loosely referenced in early hair loss folklore across Europe. Even more interesting, Hippocrates observed something that modern science would only fully explain thousands of years later. He noted that eunuchs, men who had been castrated, never went bald, an observation that was essentially an early, unknowing brush with the hormonal science of DHT and androgens that we now understand drives pattern hair loss. Meaning, ancient Greek medicine accidentally stumbled onto real science, almost 2.5 millennia before genetic testing existed. Move forward a bit further into history, and you'll find Julius Caesar, one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, notoriously self-conscious about his receding hairline, reportedly using the laurel wreath crown as a clever styling trick to cover his bald spot in public. which honestly might be one of the earliest recorded examples of strategic hair camouflage in human history, proving that even legendary emperors were not immune to the same insecurities modern men quietly deal with in front of bathroom mirrors. So if baldness has been around for tens of thousands of years, why does it feel like such a modern epidemic today? The truth is, it's not that more people are going bald, it's that more people are noticing and documenting it. Thanks to a combination of longer human lifespans, better nutrition allowing people to live long enough to experience age-related hair thinning, high-definition cameras, social media culture obsessed with appearance, and simply a cultural shift where baldness is now heavily discussed instead of quietly accepted. Whereas in ancient and medieval societies, life expectancy was so short that many men never lived long enough to reach the advanced stages of pattern baldness in the first place. Meaning, ancient baldness was extremely common genetically, but often less visually obvious, simply because fewer people survived into their 50s and 60s, when hair loss typically becomes most severe. What's even more remarkable is that despite thousands of years of remedies, rituals, and desperate experiments, from crocodile fat to pigeon droppings to modern multi-billion-dollar hair restoration industries, humanity still hasn't fully solved baldness. And in a strange way, that failure connects every generation of men across history into one shared, almost comedic brotherhood of trial and error, stretching from a Neanderthal running his fingers over a thinning scalp by firelight, to Hippocrates rubbing nettles into his own head, to Julius Caesar adjusting his laurel crown just right, all the way to a guy today Googling, does biotin actually work at 2 in the morning? And if there's one takeaway from tracing baldness this far back in human history, it's this. Hair loss isn't a sign of modern weakness, bad genetics gone wrong, or bad luck. It is a trait so deeply woven into the story of human evolution that it has survived ice ages, empires, plagues, wars, and the fall of entire civilizations, quietly passed down generation after generation, proving that whether you're a caveman, a pharaoh's scribe, a Roman emperor, or a regular guy scrolling through this video right now, baldness has never been about looking less powerful. It has been walking alongside human history since the very beginning. And maybe, just maybe, that makes it less something to hide from and more something to simply understand.